Well, good afternoon or good morning if you're in Los Angeles, California, as Rabbi Bernhard is. My name is Scott Harris. I'm very fortunate and grateful for the opportunity to serve as a Jewish vegan representative for allcreatures.org. Rabbi, for bringing Boker Tov, good morning to you. Oh, hi. Thank you so much for joining us to share the mission and the vision and the work of the Center for Jewish Food Ethics. I'm so grateful that you made the time for us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be able to be here.
Well, thank you. I also want to take a moment to thank allcreatures.org for affording me this opportunity to chat with you, Rabbi, and to help promote the work of bringing veganism and animal protection to more Jewish eyes, ears, hearts, and stomachs. So thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. When Tams and you were chatting perhaps a couple of weeks ago, and I was kind of paying attention and listening to a little bit about what was going on, I became very excited about the prospect of talking with you. So I asked, having never done this before, I asked if it would be okay if I could interview you, and Tams very generously acquiesced and said, sure, you could do worse. But so before I come right to your biography that you were kind enough to share, I thought I'd share a couple of really short personal anecdotes of why I wanted to be involved with this, why I wanted to chat with you today. Because Judaism brought me into veganism, and veganism brought me back to Judaism. And back in 1974, while attending Sunday school at Temple Bethel, the teacher was in front of the class talking about heaven only knows what. And a hornet or a wasp flew into the classroom and landed on the board. And nonchalantly, without missing a beat, without stopping for a moment, he picks up a cup off of his desk and places it on top of the wasp or the hornet, slides a card beneath it, and lets it out the window. And it blew my mind. I had never considered that a bee or a hornet or a wasp was a creature worth saving. I just thought it was a nuisance, is because that's what had been common in what I had heard from others. And that bit of humanity just kind of blew me away. Fast forward 4 years, I'm at Camp Tamarack, a Jewish camp just outside of Metro Detroit. And it was the first time I had autonomy where I could choose what I ate. I was gone for a month. It was when I became vegetarian. And that was, again, a very profound moment for me. A couple of years later, I'm at Michigan State University. I'm involved in the Hillel Center. I'm the editor of the Jewish Voice newspaper. I think the circulation was more than a dozen, but not much more than that. And despite being culturally engaged in Judaism, I started to feel a little bit of a disconnect. And I was having a hard time reconciling some practices in Judaism that I had become familiar with and my animal rights ethos. So I made a covenant with our Creator that I would protect his creatures more than following kashrut. And as naive as I was blessed in that I started to recognize how much Judaism is involved in animal rights through the Talmud or through the Torah or through the Mishnah or through other writings. And it was not long before I discovered the Liberated Lamb Haggadah. So the Jews for Animal Rights out in Marblehead, Massachusetts had made a vegetarian Haggadah for those of us who were trying to bridge what I thought was a divide between Judaism and vegan and vegetarianism and animal rights. A couple of years later, I discovered the Vegetarian Resource Group, who is vegan and who put out Jewish cookbooks that were vegan. And it made it so much easier for me to start to segue back towards Judaism. I discovered the Jewish Vegetarian Society, which later became Jewish Veg, which I did a little bit of volunteer work for it last year. And then I discovered the Jewish Initiative for Animals. And as I'm sure you'll be able to expound on much better, merging together to form the Center for Jewish Food Ethics. So in no small part, my return to Judaism is due to the work of the predecessors of the Center for Jewish Food Ethics, an organization that I will align myself with to grow and reinforce both my Jewish and my vegan identities. So that is why I so much wanted to talk with you this morning for your way, or this afternoon out in Michigan. So if I may transition over to the bio you were kind enough to share with us.
Please.
Thank you, Rabbi Jonathan Jaffe Bernhard. As a rabbi with 25 years in the pulpit, I bring a wide range of experience, skills, and knowledge to my role as executive director at the Center for Jewish Food Ethics. My work focuses primarily on vision, development, and teaching with the aim of engaging the Jewish community in vital conversations about our food sector. Our food system. Outside of work, I am crazy about English Premier Soccer, fostering mama dogs and their puppies, raising chickens, and playing ukulele. So before we segue into the actual interview, are there any klezmer bands that feature ukuleles? And if not, why not?
I have no idea.
There should be. There should be. So
I don't know about that. I'm not much of a ukulele player. So,
well, again, thank you so much for taking the time. Traditionally, I've been told that the interviews from All Creatures fall into three separate categories or three separate topics. The first one is your personal story. It segues over to talk about the organization and then kind of current events or projects, what is going on. So the first series of questions that we have are going to be about you and about your journey to becoming a vegan and where you are doing what you're doing right now. And when did you become a vegan and what led you to this transition?
So I became a vegan about 6 years ago. I had been vegetarian for many, many years before that. And for me, it really all began working in a chicken coop in Israel one summer. I was on a kibbutz, and we were called in one night while it was dark to help cage the chickens. Mm-hmm. And after that experience that's when I first took my own personal step towards becoming vegetarian. And it really just kind of went back and forth for many years. And then just as my own growing awareness in terms of the suffering that went into the food system, even the non-meat elements, between that and also really my wife, Lori, and her own desire to just kind of try some different kind of cooking and so forth, enabled us 6 years ago to kind of make this leap.
That's absolutely wonderful. So besides your wife, did you have support with friends or families or other in your community, or did you feel isolated at the time?
Neither. I didn't feel particularly isolated. I was part of a community where it was well known I was vegetarian, and so it wasn't a problem. So I didn't feel necessarily attacked. I guess I felt supportive. People were always very kind about and gracious in terms of, when I go out to eat and so forth, but never felt attacked or anything. I felt like I was always given a amount of space, and really the most supportive person has always been my wife, Lori.
Yes.
And she's always been really great about it. Letting me have some space and then also taking the space and trying some things herself.
That's absolutely wonderful. It's wonderful to have a partner who gets it, who's on the same page. So many who work in tandem.
Yeah.
On this.
Yeah, very fair.
Yeah. So how does the piece of not eating creatures, how does it manifest in your life today?
In terms of
peace of mind. Do you feel a sense of was it liberating as you came to? Did it feel enlightening or even help you feel lighter?
That's really an interesting question. People will actually ask, when we made the change, for so did you feel a difference?
Right.
Well, they're talking about it in a physical sense, right? Did you feel a difference? And the truth is, what for Lori and I, I think we both found is that cutting dairy out, we actually felt different.
Oh.
Everything else, not so much, but there we actually noted, and on occasion, if we accidentally eat dairy, we're like, yeah, okay, that didn't sit so well. But in terms of how it manifests beyond that, it enables me to have a certain level of feeling that I am doing as well by the creatures with whom I share this world as possible. I wasn't raised in a religious household. But I was raised by parents, both of whom instilled within me the thought that whatever you do, you are to treat everyone well. and I simply extended that to animals.
That's beautiful. Why draw an artificial line? Why draw a hierarchy where one need not exist?
Right. That's, that was my particular addition to that, to the way my parents raised me. But it really just comes out very much of you treat things well. And it always felt good to me to treat things well. So now I'm just treating more things well.
Right.
So when you ask, how does it manifest?
Right.
I think that would be about as good an answer as I could give.
That's actually a splendid answer. Again, anecdotally, my son and daughter were each born vegetarian, and each one of them on their own accord upon turning 9 decided to transition to veganism and have been vegans ever since. And what I had noted with my daughter in particular, because she's the older of the two, is at age 9, how empowering it was for her to make that transition into veganism at an age where everything seemed kind of topsy-turvy. She had lost her mom a year before, and trying to find a way to fit in with the world or find some semblance of control. That not only did she feel a sense of control over her own personal autonomy, but she felt a kinship with other creatures. And then she, not only would she be able to look at the cats and the dogs and, in the eyes, when we would go to a farm sanctuary, a farmed animal sanctuary, she could be with the creatures and be able to look at them in the eye and feel a sense of connection as you're describing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand that. I see that.
Yeah. So it may be a kind of a broad question, but do you have any particular memorable experiences from turning vegan? Anything, these aha moments with other people? Has anyone followed your lead? Any just moments that really pop out as spectacular? Or
I don't know if there have been any what I'd call real aha moments, and I don't know if anyone's followed my lead. I know that some of my friends have been very gracious, and both when I'm present, and they even say when I'm not, they don't eat as much meat. So beyond that, you can never really tell what kind of impact you're having on people. I'm pretty humble. I'm pretty humble in that regard.
Who knows how far what your teachings have gone, especially from the pulpit or whatever other interactions you've had.
Yeah, you never know. You never know when you're teaching. I mean, there's the formal moments, and then there's the informal moments, but then there's the even more informal moments. So you just don't know, and so you never really hard to always gauge the impact. In terms of any aha moments, I can't think of any like that were really like, wow. I think there have been moments when I have opened up my refrigerator though, and I've looked at it and I've said to myself, not bad.
You can eat well. You should eat anyway.
I look at it, I'm like, I'm looking at the veggies and the things, and the dressings and the drinks. I'm thinking to myself, that is a decent looking fridge. That's a fridge of someone, because I think you can tell a lot about people.
Right.
Open up their refrigerators. Right.
Wow.
Some people go into medicine cabinets.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that. That seems to be an invasion of privacy. But I'm always fascinated by how people organize their fridge.
If it's 75% condiments, what's your takeaway?
Yeah, that person's got a problem.
Yeah, I'm working on. I'm sorry, that person. I'm sure.
that person might have too many condiments in there. Yeah.
Oh. I need to go grocery shopping. I think it's my takeaway.
That's what it shows. You've got to go grocery shopping. Man.
I need to go. As soon as we're done, I'm on my way to Kroger.
Now listen, I'd be afraid to show you what our fridge looks like. Hello.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know about you. Look, it goes in waves.
It does.
It goes in waves, and vegan cooking is interesting. I mean, not that I cook vegan. I'm not the cook. I'm the clean. But watching my wife and talking with her about it and talking with others, you really got to stock up your kitchen differently.
Yeah.
And if I remember anything about our becoming vegan, it wasn't any particular aha moment, but it's that process of stocking up. You need more spices. All of a sudden, a product called Nooch became. I'm like, how do I live? how do I live without this thing?
It wasn't living, it was existing.
Exactly. I'm like, all of a sudden, this thing becomes like the most essential thing. Do you have nooch?
Oh, from popcorn to spaghetti to just eating it straight out of the bowl. Yeah.
You know, so that is what when I think about becoming vegan, it's really that tends to be sort of like what I, as I went through the process, what I think about.
I love it. I love it. Well, on behalf of the nutritional yeast fans out there, thank you. Oh, so from the final question under the first sub topic of your story is, what words of encouragement would you give to a new vegan today who feels isolated or might be struggling?
Don't let perfection become an enemy of the good.
I like that.
You know, just something along those lines. I might try to say it in a slightly more original fashion.
No.
But you know, you got a good phrase.
Yeah.
I'll go with it. But you know, I find for myself one of the things that I would struggle with, and in speaking with people, you know, what you hear other people, you know, some of the dynamics is, you know, oh, I can't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, you know, sometimes it's hard.
Right.
You know, or you know, sometimes you don't have the options. You know, sometimes you're just not feeling it.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. And I don't think that people should be dissuaded by the fact that they can't do this or probably pretty much anything else in their life perfectly. And just kind of like, and that to me is really what is really where faith is important.
Yes.
Right. Because this is in terms of just having a little faith in oneself. Right? I like in order to kind of take in whatever it is and still, you know, remain true to your principles and what's important, and understand that sometimes life's going to knock you off. Just get back on.
I love it.
That would be where I'd go with them.
I appreciate that. You know, the whole notion, the mistaken notion, I believe, that veganism is a diet as opposed to a lifestyle, because we are going to make mistakes. And we're at the mercy of others sometimes when we go to a restaurant and ask what's included in there, and they omit the fact, oh yeah, it's got tallow in it, you know, it has animal byproducts. We do our due diligence. We're not vegans because of that. We're vegans because we really strive, as you're saying, not to be perfect. Well, maybe we're striving to be perfect, but we're not letting the oopses and the mistakes, the oversights along the way throw us off.
Right. You know, and I think for me, it's helpful. I don't know if you feel the same way, you know, rather than looking at vegan as a noun, say that describes me,
right?
Because I wouldn't describe myself as vegan. I mean, my diet is plant-based, and if that makes me vegan, okay, you know, but I understand too, like you're talking about, you know, veganism is a broader philosophy, but when you look at it within that way, you know, I look at it the same way I look at being Jewish. I'm not Jewish. I'm not vegan. I am a person. Right. And I am following a vegan path.
Yes. I'm
following a Jewish path. And the vegan path, man, is a path. It's not a static thing.
No, I like that.
And in the same how I understand myself Jewishly, what my practice looks like has varied throughout my life. And with veganism, with my diet too, there are ups and downs, and it's a path that you walk as best as you can.
Yes. No, I really appreciate that. We're not a single descriptor. We're complicated, dynamic individuals who,
right.
We contain multitudes. So
yes.
So the next section segues over to your organization. And I know that the Center for Jewish Foods and Ethics is a blending of existing organizations. And when you and I had spoken briefly a few months ago, I was very excited to hear what the rationale was behind it and what the mission is. So if you don't mind, if you could tell us a little bit about how the conversation began and how the transition, how the transition began, and the mission and the vision and the purpose of the work that you're doing right now.
So there are within the Jewish vegan animal welfare space, if you will, you know, there's a number of different organizations, not a lot of us, so we all kind of know one another. And I only entered this space about 3.5 years ago. Space existed for many years without me. And my sense is that within that space, within these organizations, there have been conversations back and forth about merging different organizations and different combinations for a number of years. And the idea behind that, I think, is a fairly straightforward one, which is there's a certain strength in numbers. Right, it's hard on so many levels to be a one-person operation.
Yes,
as you suspect, you kind of have this. You might have some sense of this, like being able to kind of be with others and partner with others and partner with more and so forth. It not only just strengthens the organization in terms of its infrastructure and its finances, but it strengthens us in terms of who we are as people, and binds us, and we draw from one another. So I think for a lot of reasons, merging in various combinations had been there. So it just so happened that the stars aligned and the merge was right for the Jewish Initiative for Animal and Jewish Veg to merge. And the idea was to really be able to do two things. One was to be able to bring a concentrated focus on diet change, right? And then also at the same time, be able to develop the Jewish plant-based resources and community. So it's really trying to balance those two things, with the primary focus being in terms of how we gauge ourselves successful as an institution is how many institutions are we engaging with, and how many of them are writing food policies that are going to reduce consumption by animal products by some agreed upon percentage. Right? When we work with an institution, we generally work towards a minimum of 20% reduction.
Wow,
not more. And that's what the organization does. And in the process of doing that, we work with other organizations within this space, and we work with we work with individuals and education to be able to spread the word and develop the community.
I love it. Historically, most organizations I've been engaged in have been more philosophical. Sometimes we get up and get into protests and such, but by and large, we would speak amongst people who already share our opinions.
Right.
What you're doing, what the organization is doing, is fascinating because it's pragmatic and it's measurable, and you have a practical vision. And I love this. It's just such a wonderful, practical way, again, to affect positive social change.
Yeah, I happen to agree. I've been in the Jewish community and working as a rabbi in the Jewish community for many, many years. And, I love the fact that the community, on the whole, takes its obligations towards bettering the world seriously. You see that manifest in the word tikkun olam. The challenges that I found, when I was in the pulpit for so many years is that, we would do a project and then next year we'd come back and we'd do the same project.
Right.
And the following year, the same project.
Right.
When people say to me sort of, what do I see myself in this position doing in 10 years? I say collecting unemployment. Right. I want to put myself out of a job. I'm not looking just to help. I'm looking to help and change the system.
Right. Make what you're doing now obsolete in the future.
Exactly. Right. And that requires what you're talking about, It requires being practical. It requires being able to measure it. And it also requires a whole bunch of intangibles, which is bringing other people, both Jewish vegans and plant-based diet folk, as well as people who are just concerned about the climate and concerned about animal welfare, concerned about just sort of how this country goes about feeding itself, because it's kind of like not healthy.
Right.
On so many levels, for so many people in so many ways, so we're looking to kind of in try to engage all of those things and really make a tangible, quantifiable difference.
I love it. So this may be apocryphal at this point. I believe it was true once, but my memory sometimes fades, and I don't want to exaggerate aspects of this. But sometime in the late 70s or early 80s, I had read an article, and of all places, the Reader's Digest. And they were saying that collectively, that there are more people engaged in animal advocacy activities than any other not-for-profit movement. And that blew my mind. And that also helped serve as a catalyst for my engagement, is realizing that there were a lot of us. And yet I've become frustrated because the lack of progress that seemed to be made. I'm sure behind the scenes, as far as animal welfare issues and the conditions in which some animals are being treated may have improved marginally. There didn't seem to be any momentum towards any large scale cultural change. And from what I understand from our previous conversation, that really seems to be what the long-term mission is. And you had shared with me something that was very, very exciting, how Tu B'Shvat has become like Earth Day within the Jewish community. And you were sharing about having a holiday, coming up with a holiday for creatures. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Sure. As people may be aware, Tu B'Shvat is the 15th of the month of Shvat, which generally falls sometime in the beginning of the secular New Year, sometime in January, mid to late January, occasionally February. And it used to be a tithing holiday. You go back to 2,000 years when the temple existed in Jerusalem, and it was a tithing holiday, right? People would bring the produce of their trees, right, after the third year to the temple and offer it up. They'd offer up a portion of it. And the same was true as animals, right? But the tithing of the animals didn't occur in the January, February time. It occurred in around the August, September time, just before Rosh Hashanah. And it was the same kind of thing, which is a certain number of animals were tithed, and this was the time of year when it was determined. It's kind of like April 15th, right? There was April 15th for the trees and for their produce, and there's April 15th for the domesticated animals that one had and that one was raising. And that was known as, and that fell on the first of Elul, right? And that was known as the Jewish New Year for the animals, Rosh Hashanah Lebehemot, as it said in Hebrew. And over time, there has been an attempt seeing what's happened with Tu B'Shvat and how that has become, over the years, a much bigger holiday, and one that draws attention to what Judaism talks about our obligations towards the earth and the environment. So too, starting, I'd say roughly about 20 years ago, or perhaps a little bit earlier, people have been doing the same thing around Rosh Hashanah Lebehemot, around this new year for animals, trying to develop a holiday that just brings awareness to what Judaism teaches about our ethical obligations to all the other species with whom we share this world. And look, this is, we're not creating a new holiday. We're taking a date that exists on the calendar and doing what Jewish tradition and Jewish civilizations have done all the time, which is we simply add layers of meaning to it over time. And if we can add enough layers of meaning, then that hopefully that holiday will catch as a moment in time when the Jewish community pauses and reflects and asks itself, how are we doing here? How are we doing in terms of our stewardship of the other creatures on this planet?
That's fantastic. And has there been much success speaking with congregations or individuals about this at this point? Is the momentum started to grow?
Well, I'd love to say it's starting to grow, and you can always say that. I would say we're at the very blips of the beginning.
So this is an exciting time to be Jewish and vegan because we're at the genesis, we're at the birth.
Oh, I think it's a very exciting time.
Yeah,
I think it is. I think it's a very exciting time, not only because of just all the things that are starting to unfold, but also, you look at the Jewish community right now and you really sense a certain level of unraveling, right? It's an unraveling of the institutions and the communal narrative that held together the community, I'd say about 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
It was a good one. It was a good communal narrative and good institutions, and we were well served. But for whatever reason, their lots, those things are starting to unravel, and I think that gives us an opportunity. I think people are looking, right? And they're not looking for the traditional authorities to tell them what is and is not kosher or authentic. They're looking at other places now because they understand those traditional authorities might not have their best interests at heart. And so I think it's a really interesting and hopefully open time for people to begin exploring these kinds of things.
This is wonderful. And again, I understand how things ebb and flow and how the edge, but the only thing that's constant is change. But how within our various cultures that vegetarianism and veganism and advocacy of many kinds, maybe because of social media or maybe just the zeitgeist, but it's becoming more and more prominent. So again, to me, this is an exciting development. This was maybe an inevitability that we were going to see things move towards a movement like this. But to go from something that's philosophical to something that's actually really doing something tangible to affect change is just it's exciting, to me.
I agree. By the way, I would say it's exciting because you see more and more individual Jews who are interested in exploring different dietary kinds of options,
Mhm.
both and really interested in saying, hey, what does it mean to keep kosher in this world this day?
Yes.
What does that really look like? It's also really exciting because I'll tell you the to toot our own horn for a moment, the work that we're doing at the Center for Jewish Food Ethics in terms of institutional change
Mhm.
and institutional diet change and the impact we could have. There is no other religious community that is as far advanced in this kind of conversation as the Jewish community. And I think it's amazing. I think it's really amazing with all the things that are going on, with all the pain and tragedy and tension that's unfolding within the Jewish community writ broadly in the world, right? With the rise of anti-Semitism, with the things we see starting in October 7th, with all of this stuff.
Right.
We're working with institutions that are like, we see all of this and we want to make the world a better place. We're not walking away.
That's it.
And they take these kinds of things, these kinds of policies and this education, they bring it to their community because they want to be more compassionate, they want to be more ethical, and they're doing it at a time when so many would just turn inward and kind of reject.
Yes.
It's great stuff.
It absolutely is. And 2 points. One, please do toot your own horn. This is what the interview is about, is to promote the work of Center for Jewish Food Ethics. So please, at every opportunity, please go on.
No problem.
And the other thing, too, is there's this mistaken notion within the animal activist community is that we only care about non-human fellow sentients, that we don't care about our fellow human beings, too, which is ludicrous.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I find as I've kind of gotten into the animal welfare world, I've noticed that there are some people who speak wondrously, beautifully, articulately about the compassion that we have to have towards other animals,
right,
while treating the person next to them like so poorly.
yes,
right, and I can't abide by that.
Mm-mm.
The whole point, it's not enough for us just to be compassionate to other animals. We have to be compassionate to all animals.
I so appreciate that. And yes, there is a disconnect that I've never been able to reconcile. So I appreciate you articulating as well.
Well, I can reconcile the disconnect.
No.
I understand where the disconnect, because honestly, no, I get it. Because when and I'm sure you do on a level as well. Because when you work within this work and you see the pain that we inflict on other species,
yes,
and you then experience the either the callousness or the just basic not caring of other human beings, and you can't help angry at such indifference.
Yeah.
You see, like, and I get where it comes from. So I'm sympathetic to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, wrong.
I totally agree.
You got to live it, but I get where I get it. I have at various moments resembled it. So yeah. Now that part I do understand, but the whole point is about trying to bring more compassion,
yes,
to a very harsh world.
I so appreciate that. When I was a wandering Jew for a while, I finally joined a congregation when the rabbi was talking about Tikkun Olam. And I grew up in a Reform environment, so if I had heard of it, I didn't remember it. And so now I'm in my mid-adult years, and the rabbi was going on about how it is we are charged with trying to make the world a better place. We are charged with trying to heal the world, and that helped me again to bridge the disparate factions of where the world has fissures. How we treat our fellow sentients, how we treat fellow human beings, how we treat the environment, just so many different ways. And this notion again that it all can come together under that concept of healing, to healing the world. So
Yeah.
that certainly does resonate with me. We've done a really nice job of blending as we're talking the second and third topic. So we've already begun talking a little bit about some of the current activities of the Center for Jewish Food Ethics. But I was wondering too, I know that it takes time for something to congeal and for an organization to have all the things in place before they start to have their introduction to the world in a broader sense. What is going on right now behind the scenes that we should be looking out for, or that we could be excited about? Because I'm going to encourage people, at least a couple, maybe even a few more times before we're done, to start to follow the work, to direct them to the webpage. So please.
I'd like to encourage that as well.
Yeah.
So forget behind the scenes. Let me just tell you what's up front and center that we're doing. So right now we're engaged with the conservative movement, which is one of the denominations, religious denominations in the liberal Jewish community. And we're working with about half a dozen different institutions, schools, camps, synagogues, and we're working to create food policy. We're working with them for a year. At the end of the year, they write food policies, just as I said, reducing animal consumption by 20% or more. And so we're working with these 6 different institutions, and are already doing that. And the conservative movement has been really wonderful in stepping in and providing us the opportunity to kind of explore and create this cohort. And the reform movement is joining in as well. So we're at a place right now where we're going to hopefully be working, ideally, if it all comes together, each year starting a new cohort from one of the different movements, right, in terms of writing new policies in ways that make sense for who they are as individual institutions and communities. And what we're looking to do with this both is, we work with a cohort, but we're also going to be writing sort of what we've learned and then just sharing it. The idea is to learn how communities can do this and then share so other communities can do this with or without our support. It doesn't have to be always with us. We just want to be able to provide the materials and support for communities that want to do it. So we're really excited about the institutional work that we're doing and the impact that we're already having. It's really, it's gratifying and inspiring. Makes me feel good at night when I lie down, because really feel like, here's ways, it's small, it's baby steps, but here are ways in which we are making an impact.
Yes.
And we can see how this impact can change an institution, can change a culture, can change a community. We also just put out this wonderful video called Shalom Begins on Your Plate. And it's on our website. I'll pop the info in the chat. And this is a 7-minute video. We have 6 different rabbis on it, talking about different elements of what it means to be a proper steward in this earth. What it is to take care of the other animals, what it is to take care of our bodies, what it is to take care of the environment, and what that means when we talk about what it is to keep kosher in this day and age. So we're starting to share that video far and wide as a way of beginning to engage the community and engage in conversations and begin educating people and raising awareness around all of these issues.
This is wonderfully powerful and affirming, and I like the message how it's being presented, that this is a positive thing, this is a happy thing, this is not a hell and damnation thing, this is we can make a positive change, we can affect not only the quality of others' lives, but ultimately, be it philosophically or spiritually, as well as physically, the quality of our own lives and the lives of others in our families and communities. So again, the work that you and the organization are doing has appendages that are probably a lot stronger and be a lot more far-reaching than is recognizable right now. So,
I mean, that's our hope. we hope it's far-reaching. But you begin with the person in front of you, begin with the institution in front of you. You begin in understanding who they are, where they're coming from.
Yes.
Right. And not making them feel bad.
Yes.
Right? We're not interested in taking things away from institutions. We don't say you can't serve any animal products. We don't say that, not because of our own personal preferences. We just can't say it because it ain't going to go anywhere.
Right.
What's the point of engaging in conversation with people if you're not actually going to be heard?
Yes.
So our goal is to be able to kind of meet people with where they are and bring them along. Bring them that makes sense for who they are. So we don't tell people to take away things. We say, hey, how can we be more inclusive? Right? How can we add these things in a way that makes it attractive for people to engage and to eat?
Again, this is absolutely wonderful. A couple of years ago, Rabbi Michael Lerner had come to town, and we had hosted a couple of events. And one of the messages, and he's also vegan, which is a nice little plus too. One of the things that he had shared that really resonated with me is a failing for a lot of progressive or inclusive movements is that sometimes we do get a little bit preachy, and sometimes we do get a little bit condescending. And where we lose people sometimes is not so much the message, but the methodology.
Right.
And the positive, again, the affirming way that that the Center for Jewish Food Ethics in general, and you in particular, are sharing the message. This is all positive. This is all doable. This is healthy. It's life affirming. It's meaningful. It's going to change the quality of so many lives. So,
and also at a time right now when I think, especially in the world in which we live in, when people feel unseen, and when we're constantly dealing with these increasingly larger bureaucracies and increasingly larger problems that are really beyond our ability to solve, like that I can't have much agency or impact here.
Yes.
It's incredibly affirming and powerful to know that my diet, the food I eat and the choices I make around that are not just filling my belly,
right,
but have implications for other species, workers, the environment, personal health, right? And the choices that I make can impact all of those things and gives me this incredible agency.
Yes.
In a time when I think we feel so unempowered, I think it's inspiring to understand that this most basic thing that we do the second we come out of the womb, which is eat,
yes,
that if we do it in a certain way, we can really make a positive difference in our world.
What a beautiful message.
I think it's just great.
Yeah.
I think we look at it as being a positive. We can do. And we want to encourage people and have people understand that we are not passive victims here of everything that's unfolding.
Yes.
We have agency, and we have places that we can act and make a difference.
If no other message is taken away, that certainly is a huge one.
Yeah, we can reduce this whole thing just to those 30 seconds if you like. I'm good.
for the new YouTube Shorts section. That's
right, exactly. There we go.
What was I going to segue over to? So last night, Tams and I were listening to New York Times. It's the interview podcast, and they're interviewing Peter Singer. And besides learning of his newest book, Consider the Turkey, we learned that Singer lost 3 of his 4 grandparents in the Holocaust. And up until that, I did not know of Singer's Jewish heritage. And although I'm still learning, I'm not all that well versed in Jewish animal rights liturgy and in history. I'm more aware of the relatively recent history of Judaism and animal rights and the works of Alex Hershaft and Richard Schwartz, Nobel Prize winner Isaac Bashevis Singer, who wrote in relation to animals, all people are Nazis. For the animals, it is an eternal Treblinka. I'm starting to realize that there is a history, at least a relatively contemporary history to me, of Judaism and veganism and animal rights. And I don't know how I could have been immersed in different worlds and different. I don't know how I could have overlooked this for so long to understand just how this is. You had alluded to it a little bit earlier. This is time honed. This is something where there really is an explicit part of the philosophers and the scholars and the sages in our faith who have really preached about animal rights and animal protection.
Yeah. I think, though, one of the things that I think it's fair to say, which is Judaism is not a vegan tradition, at least not from my perspective. There would be others who would argue that, and it's a fair argument. And it's hard to really qualify a tradition that's been around for 4,000 years as one thing or another anyway. So, but Judaism doesn't have that strain explicitly in it. What I think Judaism does have is, though, going back to the Torah itself, which is this understanding of and this relationship with other creatures, right? It's I don't think it's an accident that, in Genesis, in chapter 1 and verse 26, it says, come, let us make Adam, let us make humanity in our image, right? And they shall be stewards over all the other animals. Right? Like there's that connection, that sense of who we are as being creatures created in the image of the divine is directly related to how we treat other animals.
Yeah.
And I think there's lots of reasons for that, but I think it just goes to show that from very early on, from the very beginning, Judaism's understood and has had what to say about this dynamic. I think what happens, though, is that over time, our connection with other species and the natural world ebbed. And our focus on it ebbed. I didn't have a single class in rabbinical school that focused on animal ethics. Right? I wouldn't have taken it.
Right.
If it was offered. So, so I can't blame the seminary for not offering. Right? It's just totally not where I was at the time. I'm just observing, but I think that has changed.
Yes.
I think now you see more and more scholars. We're fortunate. We work with a scholar by that gentleman named Professor Aaron Gross. But they're Adrian Krohn, Beth Berkowitz, these great professors, great teachers, all of them. And more of them. There's so many now who are out there who are starting to talk about these things. So you do see that growth, but it's a revival, a fairly new, in a sense, which is to say, you didn't miss much.
Okay.
So no, there wasn't a lot of scholarship going on 40 years ago. It's really grown.
It's amazing because I'm a bit of a nerd if you haven't picked up on that right now, and I would watch Star Trek, which originally came out in the 60s. Oh, so you understand, and how they would take an ironic look backwards to contemporary days, but since they're in the future, they look back and think, how could they have been so unenlightened? How could they not have? Right. So I look at this with that same type of glee, where I know we're already at it to some regard, but we're continuing to trend in a direction. We're going to look back at where we were 20, 30, 40 years ago, or maybe even contemporaneously to today, and see how far we've made it. How that this will not only be courses offered in the seminaries, but they're going to be well attended, and they're probably going to
right. That'd be great.
added to it also. So this is beautiful too, because unwittingly or knowingly, you've already answered my next question too, which is the biblical or Talmudic allusions to animal rights, and how, again, they've been there historically, but maybe we have not talked about them enough. So my hope is, again, that they'll be continued to be discussed.
Right, and look, and that's what an organization like ours is meant to be doing. Right, on an educational level, we're not creating the ethics.
Yes.
Right, the ethics are there. We're simply bringing them into relief.
Yes.
Right. So that we can see them, so that we can engage with our tradition and what it teaches us, so we can begin applying it and figure out, okay, how are we going to do this going forward? But we can't do any of that until we see it.
Yes.
And until we bring it to people's attention. So that's a chunk of what we try to do with our educational work.
Which is, again, you are birthing something that's going to have a long and really important and lasting impact upon not just the Jewish philosophy, but potentially even how the theology is interpreted. So I'm really excited to see, again, how all creatures can benefit from the divine writings.
Right. Now, it is, I think, for the scholars who are engaged in that work too, I think it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It looks like we're kind of getting close towards the end of this. So there are a couple things I wanted to mention before we end. Well, first of all, before we start to segue away, are there things that I've not asked, or things that you would like to share? What have I missed?
Nothing. This has been delightful.
Oh, thank you. I certainly have enjoyed it as well. I want to offer a deep, heartfelt thank you to both Rabbi Bernhard and the Center for Jewish Food Ethics for joining us today, and also to allcreatures.org for giving me this opportunity to learn more about my faith. And it's all to discuss history of protecting our Creator's creations. I want to encourage viewers and listeners to check out and follow and join the Center for Jewish Food Ethics at either jewishfoodethics.org or on Facebook. I also want anyone, I'm assuming that people are watching or listening to this today, they're probably already following allcreatures.org. If not, I encourage you to follow them. But I also want to encourage viewers and listeners to dig deeper into the rich libraries of videos, tasty vegan recipes, animal rights news, and biblical support for protecting our fellow earthlings. Please follow all-creatures.org, quite conveniently located at all-creatures.org and on Facebook. And Rabbi, if I may be so bold to ask you to share a prayer for our fellow earthlings before we call it a good day.
Sure thing. Before I do, though, I just want to express my gratitude, Scott, to you. Wonderful to be able to chat with you and really appreciate the time. And it's interesting for me. I kind of learn more what I'm thinking when people actually ask me what I'm thinking.
Well, I appreciate that. I've learned a lot today. I like days that end with me being smarter than the way I was at the day's beginning.
Well, I'm honored to be a small part of that. So I want to thank you and allcreatures.org as well for the opportunity to be able to have this time and share.
Well, thank you. And I also want to mention too, and I apologize, but Tams was kind enough to post in our comment section the video link.
Yes, I saw that. I was about to put it in. She got there before, very quick. So thank you, Tams. So a closing blessing,
please.
Our God, source of all life, from whence all life flows, into which all life returns. As we go through this day and every day, may we show to all creatures who come across our path the love, respect, the kindness, and compassion that they deserve, as we are all reflections of that one source of life from which all life comes. May we live this way, and in doing so, bring peace and comfort to our world. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. That was beautiful. And again, thank you for a wonderful afternoon.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity to share. Really appreciate it.
I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Looking forward to it.
Take care. Bye.